Hello and welcome to our sermon recap for this week. We are continuing our sermon series on Journey to Freedom about the Exodus story. And this week we talked about the plagues of Egypt. As you know, the children of Israel were enslaved in Egypt by the Egyptians, by Pharaoh, and Moses was called by God to lead the children of Israel out of bondage. So he was supposed to go and confront Pharaoh and say, "Let my people go that they may serve me. Get rid of them as slaves, don't do that anymore." And of course, Pharaoh said, "No, I don't think so." So Pharaoh didn't want to give him up. So the warning that Moses gave him, he showed him his rod, he turned it into a serpent. That did not impress them because the magicians could do the same thing. And water turned to blood, and they could do the same thing, and cause lice to rise up, and they could do the same thing. But after that, the plagues, they couldn't reproduce. So they warned Pharaoh that maybe you should listen. So what's the story all about? The story is about how Moses, which is the Lord's word or truth, is sent by the Lord to us. Like the Lord knocks on the door of our mind and says, "Hey, you want to consider changing your life?" And if we are struggling with a bad habit or addiction or destructive behavior of any kind, this is, of course, talking to us. We all struggle with things. But the invitation is to leave that troubled way of living, that dysfunction, and go to the promised land, which the Lord tells us is actually a symbol for a heavenly way of life, a way of freedom. But to get there, we're going to have to first of all, get out of slavery. We have to move through the wilderness and get to the promised land. And all of that is about our spiritual journey. That's what that story is about. So it's a symbolic story about what we go through. So these plagues are pictures of what happens if we don't listen to the truth when we're aware of it, if we don't respond to it. Like Pharaoh, we say, "This is uncomfortable, I don't like this, but I'm not going to change my mind, I'm not going to give up." And, if you've ever struggled with anything, we always make promises like Pharaoh does when things get bad. Like, say the plague of the frogs, where all these frogs came and they infested the land, and everyone's kneading bowls, they're in their beds, they're in their houses, they're everywhere. And Pharaoh said, okay, I'll let your people go. And so the frogs all die, and they have to, get rid of them all, and they stink terribly. And of course, Pharaoh's like, "Yeah, this is terrible. I don't want this to happen." It's like us when we maybe do something wrong that we feel badly about, and we have that regret. Maybe if you're someone who drank too much and you have a hangover, like when you have that hangover, you're like, "Oh, I'm not going to do that again. I got to stop drinking," or whatever it is. So that's pictured by these things. But the problem with the plagues, which is a picture of what can happen to us as well, is if we disregard all those warning signs, then we get to the point where we are completely devastated spiritually, which is pictured by the death of the firstborn, which is the last plague, where actually our love for what's good is dead. That's what the firstborn pictures. So it's kind of like we've lost hope. But also the story is about how the Lord sets us free. So there's kind of these parallel stories, the Lord freeing the children of Israel, the Lord leading us if we're trying to follow what's good to a better place. And also if we refuse to listen, that side of us, or maybe us in a dysfunctional way of living, we're going down that path and things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So the Lord sends us truth. The Lord stands at the door and knocks. If we hear his voice and open the door, the Lord will come in and dine with us, and we with him. It's this beautiful invitation that the Lord offers us. And he also says about these plagues, if we are, let's say if we're punished for something, we tend to blame the other person, like a child who doesn't listen to their parents and gets punished for something, they tend to blame their parents. But really it's the child that did the wrong thing that brought the punishment on themselves. Or the criminal who gets caught for shoplifting or something like that and ends up having to spend some time in jail. They might blame the prosecutor, blame the judge, instead of like, "Hey, you're the one who went against the law." So it's the same thing that happens spiritually. When we don't listen, these things impact us in a negative way. But the Lord is constantly trying to draw us out, trying to lead us if we will listen. So in the story, the Lord says, "I'm going to show Pharaoh my signs and wonders." So when we're willing to listen to what's good and true, The Lord's truth are like signs and wonders, things that can help us. But if we refuse to listen, they tend to be more like plagues, things that mess up our life, that make life difficult. But again, the Lord is not the cause of any of this. The Lord never sends bad upon us. The Lord's incapable of turning his face away from us, or frowning upon us. The Lord is all loving, all merciful, and He's incapable of any of that. It's just a projection of what we're experiencing when we make bad choices. So that's a recap of the story. There's a lot to it. If you want to read it, there's like 350 pages in the Swedenborg's volumes of the Arcana Celestia or Secrets of Heaven. You can learn a lot more about these details, but that's the gist of it. Hope that's helpful. Let's listen to that voice and move out of that slavery, that bondage to things that are hurtful to us. All right. Have a great week. See you next time.